Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thinking Differently with Kathy Rhodes. I'm Kathy Rhodes, and for all of you who are coming back for more, welcome back. I'm always very excited and thankful that you come back and that you share with me all that you're enjoying from this podcast. By the way, if you love what you hear, please subscribe to the channels and definitely share with your friends. Okay, today we're going to talk about thinking differently. So if you haven't yet, I highly recommend you go out and get yourself this new book called Winners Are Quitters, because I'm going to talk about the Think Diff model that's in the book. Many times I'm asked, what do you do when you're irritated or when you're angry? How do we maintain good cortisol levels? By the way, cortisol is a stress hormone. Stress sounds bad, right? But we have to have a certain level of stress to just succeed in life. Where is that boundary line? What is the safe level? So how do we maintain good cortisol levels? And then, how do we even deal with stress? Well, thankfully, my life usually takes me in a direction of experiences where I get to suddenly practice what I preach and have a really good story to share with you. A few weeks ago, I was traveling to Orlando. So I left Madison, Wisconsin, and I traveled about 2 hours over to Reagan National in DC. And another 2 hours later, we were arriving in Orlando, Florida. So, a good amount of trip, right? Good amount of flying happening. Well, in the first airplane, this was at 6 o'clock a.m., I found my seat. Row 26, seat F. That is the last row of the airplane, seat next to the window. I mean, I'm like in the last corner of this airplane. No worries, I've sat in the last row before, it's fine. Except for some reason, this one was different. As soon as I sat down, I had no room. I was like sitting straight up, and my knees were jamming into the seat in front of me. So in all those rows ahead of me, if you are all given just a few little centimeters of extra leg room, yeah, it all made up for it in the very end. And I was less leg room than normal. So I was uncomfortable, right? So I get in and I move over to the window seat, and so far my seat partner has not arrived. But I had to focus on my breathing, because I had such an attitude. I was irritated, I was annoyed, I was uncomfortable. I tried to kind of shift my hips and move my legs over into the other seat area. Well, I had a really tough workout the day before and my hips were hurting, and I had to self-talk myself so that I didn't look what I was thinking. I was thinking I was annoyed, I was frustrated. I didn't want that to come across my face, but I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. So, okay, that's fine. I can do this. I can make this work. I don't want to be irritated. I don't want to be a brat. I can do this, right? Well, then I heard the announcement to the flight attendants that they were locking the doors, close up the cabin, get ready for takeoff. And I didn't have a seatmate yet. Okay, this will be nice, but I'm still focusing on my breathing. I'm still focusing on I'm not going to be a brat. I'm not going to be irritated. It took me about 2 minutes to come up with the idea to move into the aisle seat. If I don't have a seatmate in this row, why am I sitting next to the window? It took me 2 minutes to finally figure out, let's just move over. Okay, a little better, right? One leg could kind of extend. A little better. Well, then my wonderful flight attendant was coming down the aisle, and I knew he was coming right at me. And I thought, oh, he's going to tell me to get back in my seat, isn't he? So he comes up and he says, "Ma'am, could I ask you to move again?" Well, again means that he did notice I switched seats. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, what do you need? He's like, "We really need this last row to be empty for weight and balance. Do you mind moving up to row 8? I said I would love to. And he smiled and said, "I thought you would." Row 8 is the row behind first class. And there's no divider wall between first class and basic economy. So I had 2.5 rows of leg room. It was amazing compared to where I came from, right? It was beautiful. Oh, it felt so good on my legs. I had no seat partner. It was just me and all of the space. It was wonderful. But once I sat down, I realized I was still a brat. Here I got better than what I even wanted, and I just was still attitude-y. And I was starting to be humbled, and I felt really bad about that because, you know, I really shouldn't be given a reward unless I was able to push through the attitude, right? I mean, as a parent, that's how I parented, right? You're not going to get the treat unless you say you're sorry or unless you work through this. Well, I got a reward. I didn't even ask for it. I got a reward, and I didn't fully process through it. So if you're watching on the video, we're going to show you on the screen, or you can just look over my shoulder in the video. This is the Think Diff model. This is the model that I talk about in my new book, Winners Are Quitters. This is exactly the model that I was talking myself through when I was sitting in seat 26F. So the model is 3 sections: push, be, do. PUSH is an acronym. P.U.S.H. PUSH is an acronym. You don't really enter this stage of thoughts at the P. The only reason P begins this model is because it makes a nice word called push, right? But I don't ever enter this stage. When you think about your thoughts, when you think about my thoughts, as I sat in row 26, seat F, they were spinning out of control. They were negative, they were grumpy, they were just mean. They were spinning out of control. I knew I wanted to spin differently. I knew I wanted to come out of this spin. I knew I wanted to think differently. And I was trying my hardest to use this model. But where did I really start? Well, I had to start by slowing down. And I had to start with unemotionalizing. That's where I usually start. My pace is so fast. Even at 6 a.m., I come in ready to go. I had a book to read. I had things I wanted to do. I had a nap to take. I needed to slow down. I needed to take those deep breaths, and I needed to unemotionalize. Unemotionalize out of the yucky attitude that I had. We're never without emotions. I get that. But I do want to unemotionalize from the toxic emotions. And that's when I was taking a deep breath. That's when I was self-talking myself through a better attitude. That's when I was working through this Think Diff model. And I sat and spun just in those 2 quadrants for a long time. A long time. And I know this because, like I said earlier, it took me 2 minutes to figure out another option. It took me 2 minutes after the doors closed to realize, just move over, sit in the aisle seat. You don't have a seatmate, sit there. 2 minutes to ponder my options. Well, at least at that point, I started to realize I was coming out of the spin, or I was just slowing down my spin, because there's still that last quadrant, the H, humble myself. I didn't humble myself in seat 26F. I humbled myself in seat 8B. It wasn't until after I was moved to something with much more leg room that I started to really slow down and humble myself and feel embarrassment for my attitude, because the flight attendant saw that I moved seats. I'm sure he saw my ugly face as I was trying to cope in seat 26F. So now that I have fully completed the push section of the model, now that I've humbled myself, now I'm coming out of the spin. The second piece of the whole model is be. And the question to ask is, who do you want to be? Who do I want to be when I'm sitting in seat 26F? Oh, I knew who I wanted to be in seat 8B. But that's not where it's important. I'm not always going to get my way, right? I'm not always going to be moving up in the airplane. I'm not always going to have what I want. I might have to deal with what I'm given. So who do I want to be? Well, you know what? I want to be grateful because there were people asked to not get on the flight because they overbooked. I'm grateful that I have a seat on this flight. I'm grateful that I'm on my way to Orlando, Florida on schedule. I'm grateful that, the pilots are looking out for things like weight and balance. And I'm also grateful that that flight attendant had mercy on me. I'm grateful. That's who I want to be. I want to be grateful regardless of how good of an offer it really looks like. That's who I want to be. Okay. If that's who I want to be, then the last piece of the model, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to be the person that I want to be? So let's back up a little bit, because when I started this whole episode, I said many times people ask me, what do I do when I feel irritated or angry? How do I deal with stress? How do I maintain good cortisol levels? It's working through this model. When we feel stress, when we feel an attitude, when we feel angry, we need to push. We need to ponder our options, unemotionalize, slow down, humble ourselves. As we're coming out of that maybe negative thought spin, we need to evaluate and decide, who do I want to be? And at that point, it actually makes it really easy to figure out what you need to do. If I want to be grateful, that means I need to smile. If I want to be grateful for the workers, the pilots, the flight attendants, all the work that they're doing, then I need to just sit back and close my eyes and trust that it's all going to be good. I'm going to get where I need to go. I'm not going to be in that much pain. It'll be fine. That's what I need to do. No temper tantrums. No grumbly face, eyebrows furrowed in. None of that. Just smile. Be thankful. Be grateful. That's who I wanted to be in this situation. Do you see how the Think Diff model can help us work through some of our really challenging moments in life? Like I said, I struggled with it. I wrote the book, right? I wrote the model. I've used the model before, and I was self-talking myself through the model while I was in seat 26F. I got to admit, there were times that I was thinking to myself, I don't want to get out of this attitude. I don't want to think differently. I just want a different seat. I lucked out. I got the different seat, but sometimes we're not going to. We seriously have to push, be, do. If you don't have time or the ability, like I ran into, to do all of the pieces of this model, the most important question is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be in that moment? Not lifelong, not your mission and values. Who do you want to be in that moment? All right, my friends. One more thing that we're going to think differently about today. Now that we know how to process the Think Diff model, now that we are working through some different examples of when we need to think differently, let's also think differently about chocolate. Now that's a fun topic, right? Now some of you, I'm sure, don't like chocolate. Oh, but I do. I do. However, there's some little tweaks, right? Little tweaks to my thinking, little tweaks to my habit. First of all, we need to choose our chocolate wisely. Milk chocolate is not a wise choice. There's been many articles written and many questions about the health of chocolate. Yes, dark chocolate is good for us. Notice I said dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. I got to admit, I have a sweet tooth, a big sweet tooth. I love milk chocolate. I like ice cream. I like sugar. I like it all. It doesn't like me. We know that. And I'm really trying to back off. Dark chocolate is bitter. It has been an acquired taste. I have grown to like it, but I have learned how to eat it. Okay, so what are some of the little tricks? Well, avoid milk chocolate. Go for dark chocolate with at least 70% dark chocolate. All right, and here's something else. When you're eating dark chocolate, one a day, not a whole bar. 1 to 2, okay? We'll say 1 to 2 squares a day, about 1 ounce a day, not a whole bar. That's where the health benefits really are going to come in. So here's the deal. Dark chocolate has flavonoids. Those are antioxidants. What does this do? It helps our heart health. It improves our blood flow. It lowers our blood pressure. It helps with potential cancer prevention. They're still doing some tests on that. What else does it do? Well, it reduces cardiovascular strain. That's usually induced by stress, okay? So it's easier to stay calm under pressure. I should have had a piece of dark chocolate when I was sitting in seat 26F. I think that's what I just said, right? By the way, milk chocolate does not. Milk chocolate does not have this cardiovascular strain when we have stress going on. They've proven that for sure. Dark chocolate does. Dark chocolate is also a magnesium source. That's really important. It lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes. It also helps our cognitive function and our mood. There's so many benefits to dark chocolate. So how do we enjoy it? It's bitter. You can't just eat it like you can milk chocolate. So you know what? Drink it. There is a really new company out, a cool company called Cryo Brew. I'll put some links in this episode, CRIOBRU, and it is purely ground dark chocolate. Actually, the ingredient, organic ground cacao. Cacao, that's the important piece of it. The cacao beans. It's kind of like, coffee beans are healthy, right? Coffee's healthy because it's ground from coffee beans. Dark chocolate is healthy because it's ground from cacao beans. This is a wonderful, wonderful option to get your dark chocolate. Now, I gotta say, drinking it just plain with hot water, making a hot drink, yeah, it's bitter. The first time I had it, it's bitter. I do put a little flavoring in, a little cream of some sort, maybe a little stevia. I do put a little bit of that, but in the morning, it's my favorite drink. And it's pure cacao. That's beautiful. Something else might be, when you go and find some dark chocolate. This one here has 90% cacao. Woohoo! That's some pure dark chocolate. Just take off your square and dip it in your hot drink. Dip it in your coffee. Dip it in your cacao, whatever it is, right? Or maybe even melt it with a little coconut oil. The coconut oil makes it easier to melt and kind of soften up a little bit. And use it as a topping. Use it as a topping on your ice cream, which, ice cream is a lot of sugar. So instead, maybe take some yogurt and peanut butter, mix it together and freeze it, and then top it with this melted dark chocolate. Or just crunch it up and add it with a nut mixture. Make your own trail mix. I mean, super easy, right? Here's another really good dark chocolate. This one only has 60% cacao. It's made by Brain MD, which is Dr. Daniel Amen's company. This one's called Brain in Love. I have another one called Brain in Focus. The Brain in Focus, I know, has some mushrooms that, some safe mushrooms. Lion's mane is one of them that's added in. So there's more health benefits that are added into it. So, is chocolate good for us? Yeah, if we choose wisely. So let's think differently about our approach to chocolate. Think differently about our love of dark chocolate. Think differently about the different recipes that we choose to use. And we're going to help our body stay healthy. So my friends, whether you're enjoying some dark chocolate today, or if you're finding yourself in seat 26F, you might need that Think Diff model. You might need to process through to get through to who you really want to be and what you really want to do. Be sure to check out the show notes because I'll have a lot of links to some different resources and tools that you can download your Think Diff model. You can download a worksheet that really will help you. At least it helps me when I need to process through out of my negative attitude into something a little more healthy. We'll see you next time. Be great today, my friends. I hope this topic has challenged you to think differently as you strive to grow from success to world class. Please follow this podcast, share it with your friends, and follow me and Unity Consulting on all social platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our website, unityconsultingllc.com. I look forward to connecting with you next time to challenge your habits so that you are more efficient and fully empowered.